Hey, yourself, you groovy cats and kittens.
All right.
Oh God.
Yeah, I'm bringing that back, I guess.
That's an energy, I guess.
That's an energy that
Testing 1, 2. You should all be
I
able to
regret
hear
it.
all of it. We should hear it, but there we go. Yep, that was just my mistake. Sorry about that. But what I just said, I will repeat for those who didn't hear in the Twitch. If you go to the Fantastic Worlds channel in PaizoCon 2021, there is a contest for a T-shirt for this specific panel, and it will be a Far Beyond the Stars T-shirt. And also there is a sticker contest, and you have a one in however many people fill out the contest today chance to win the T-shirt contest, and you have a pretty good chance of getting some stickers. And I'm sorry, I realized I was muted over in the Discord channel. I am just doing great on tech today.
Doing wonderful.
Basket. Oh wait, I see Logan talking. We can't hear.
Oh, it's not letting me mute the headphones in.
You have to go to voice settings and then put your output volume all the way at 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Angel, you need to do that too.
Technology is not working for us today, but each time we come around, we're a little bit better. So, okay, Logan, why don't you start us off? It is your panel to run, my friend.
Sure. Okay, so just making sure everyone can hear me in everywhere that we're at, right?
Yep. I think I don't know, I'm seeing in the chat there might still be some audio issues. Oh, Noah says it sounds good now.
Woo!
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, so welcome everyone to the Medusa Effect. If we were live in person, this would be our panel. My name is Logan Main Rizzi. I am one of the co-hosts of the Fantastic Worlds Productions crew. My social media handle is right next to my beautiful purple hex, MainMan08. And I'm going to give the rest of the panel members... Oh, I'm super quiet. Very quiet.
Put the microphone closer to your mouth, Logan.
Get loud.
Is this better?
That's
better. A lot better.
Actually, yeah.
Okay. I'll just crouch down a little bit. I'll be eating the mic. But is it better for people in the Twitch?
As they say in radio,
they
make
say
love to the microphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start my spiel over again. Hello, welcome to the Fantastic Worlds Productions panel, the Medusa Effect. I am Logan Main Rizzi. I'll be the moderator for today. I am one of the co-hosts of Fantastic Worlds Production. You can find me on social media, social media, at MainMan08, as it says next to my hexagonal purple grid. And I'm going to go and let the rest of the panel members introduce themselves, and I'll be going in order clockwise. So first up is Angel.
Oh, hey. Hopefully my audio is going to okay, but I'm sure you folks will let me know if it isn't. Yes, this is Angel, one of the co-hosts here. I can be reached at Espinoza916 on various social media platforms. Sorry, Instagram, I don't jump in as often as I should.
And then following Angel, we have Dustin.
Hi, my name is Dustin Alexander. I am the GM of the Fantastic Worlds podcast. I play Mariposa on The Greatest Show on Earth. I play Friday Francisco on Far Beyond the Stars, our podcasts, and then I produce for Fairy Tale Fix.
Oh, and then sorry, I'm reading the Discord or Slack. And next up is Abby.
Hello, I'm Abby, and I am on a lot of our shows. You can find me at Bonanza Famine on Instagram and Twitter, and I think I'm on every single show that we do. I'm Pippa on Fantastic Worlds podcast. I'm the Galactic Mistress of Far Beyond the Stars. Seleno Nis, Dr. Seleno Nis on The Greatest Show on Earth, and then I also run Fairy Tale Fix with my friend Kelsey.
And then after Abby, we have Heidi.
Hi. So my name is Heidi. I am currently on one show, though I have made guest appearances on a couple. shows, and I play Saren in Far Beyond the Stars, just a sad but happy crystal space mechanic keeping the ship afloat. You can find me on Twitter at Famahillion. That's typically the easiest way to find me. You can also track me down on Discord. Just search for Fantastic World Heidi in the Paizo official channel, and I use she her pronouns. I think Jess is up next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's me. I use he, she, they pronouns just right off the bat. Please do mix it up.
Coming out hot.
Because I'm a beautiful NB. Anyways, I'm who even am I? I've forgotten all of my characters suddenly. Okay, from the top. Far Beyond the Stars, I play a pink android cat person named Ballad Serenade, aka Tetra 9. Yeah, I know, that's badass as hell. And then in The Greatest Show on Earth, I am the ringmaster of Kepri. Catch the wave. You can find me at Hank the Clank on social medias.
Okay, and that finishes up our introductions. That I realized that Angel and I forgot to introduce who our characters are.
That's right.
I will introduce myself really quickly. I play Who Knows on Fantastic Worlds production. It's up in the air as of redacted, and
Redacted.
and everything's redacted about me. My whole life is redacted. And then on The Greatest Show on Earth, I play Panoply Jupiter Teardrop, aka Pageant, a Leshy bard who is a bit of a diva. And then Angel, who do you play?
In Reign of Winter, I run the lovable Abraxas Hill Runner, druid of the Kodar Mountains, with the insatiable appetite. ... Now let's see, and there is, I know there's just so many, right? Oh, the Extinction Curse. I run Byron Stedhall, who is a monk, fiddle playing monk. Behind the scenes, not the ringmaster, but behind the scenes, doing all the cool work that needs to be done. And on, I always mess up the title, so pardon me. Fly Beyond the Stars.
Far.
You did it again. It's Far Beyond the Stars.
I've yet to get it. One of these days, it's going to happen, and I will get it. Just
no, it's fine.
on.
It's part of the show now. It's part of the show now that Angel doesn't know what the title of the show is.
I know, is Jason Tondra listening? Sorry. I play Miss Fanny, the multi-armed abuelita, octogenarian, ace pilot, astrozoan pie maker. That's who I run.
Hi, excellent. All right, so we are here today to talk about what we have dubbed the Medusa effect, aka how to create engaging villains without relying on stereotypes. And I realize that this is something that maybe you're coming in and be like, huh? Right? The very confused dog face turned a little bit to the right. So
doing math lady.
yeah, math. Yeah, we are all the math lady meme currently. So let me break it down for you a little bit before we actually get into it. So good villains, right? They antagonize the part. Yes.
Sorry, mic closer.
Good villains, they antagonize the party, right? But great villains are direct foils for the characters themselves, and they contrast with them, they highlight their differences, or in other cases, their dark similarities. So, to create these engaging villains, a GM often pulls inspiration from the real world in order to bring their antagonists to life. But, unfortunately, when we do that, it can tend to lead to some shortcuts, which aren't the best things, where, despite our best intentions, they're rooted in damaging stereotypes or of marginalized groups. So in this panel, we will be delving into how to go about creating delightful, thrilling, compelling, three-dimensional characters without relying on harmful caricatures and stereotypes, as our community, the TTRPG community itself, strives towards fostering more inclusive gaming spaces. We will give you tips and techniques, or just, showcase our own thoughts and opinions on this topic itself, on how to avoid problematic cribbing while still creating fearsome foes that your party will love to hate. And if nothing else, we will be talking about how to make bad guys be fun bad guys. Right?
Yep.
Did I miss anything, panel members?
That's my villain name, by the way, is Be Fun.
Be fun.
What's your name? Be Fun.
Is
Work.
it spelled like beef fun or like
I was thinking B period fun.
Oh,
I like
was
the
thinking-
beef fun.
first name
I was
beef?
thinking like BEE fun.
Be fun.
Right?
That was also what I was thinking.
I
is
absolutely
be fun.
refuse to wear a B outfit, so I will not be B.
Oh, I was thinking like Flower from our Starfinder game. It's just a bunch
Flower is very much be fun.
of bees, right? Just a bunch of bees. Okay, but so to get things rolling off the bat, right? It's called the Medusa effect because I think that Medusa as a character, you know, she's the mythological creature. You can see interpretation of her on the panel screen itself. She has been utilized throughout many different games and other media as a villainous character, right? So the one that I can think of right off the top of my head is God of War, where she was deemed as this almost seductress type creature that was standing in the way of the hero Kratos, and he needed to get killed essentially in order to progress through the game. You know, I'm sure you can think of other depictions of Medusa throughout the years, but really when we think about the Medusa myth itself, the reason why she is a Gorgon and she was turned into this creature is because she was taken advantage of and assaulted by men during that time. And because she was a priestess of, I believe, I went to research this and I always forget it. I think it's Athena. She's a
It is.
priestess of
I think
Athena.
you're right. It's Athena.
Right? I don't know why I was second guessing myself. I'm like, I love mythology. But so she's a priestess of Athena. And in order to protect Medusa, Athena gave her this visage with the snakes and the ability to turn men into stone, you know, like I said, to protect her. So I think it would be cooler if you take Medusa as a villainous figure to, you know, make her someone that is fighting for the protection of the people who are like her, right? So she is a noble figure, but she could be going up against a party because her wants just clash with the end results of what the party wants. So that's kind of where we're going with all of this when it comes to what the Medusa effect is, right? So a character or a concept that has been really, you know, turned on its head and needs to be brought back and course corrected. And I think with that, we'll go with our first panel member. We didn't set this up ahead of time. Is there anybody who would like to go first, or do you want me to just go through the list that we have on?
I can start.
Yeah, I think we should just go ahead and go down the list because I have worked mine in such a way that it builds off of Angel's point.
Okay.
And so
perfect.
I need Angel to make his point first before I can make
Oh.
my point.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
Then we will start with Heidi.
Okay. So, from my perspective, when I think about creating interesting villains, I think I started thinking about creating interesting villains when I was in high school, long before I would ever actually create a villain for anything. But I was really influenced by the work of Jim Kruger and Alex Ross in their comic. Whoa.
Oh no.
We're back.
Okay.
Okay. I was influenced by the work of Jim Kruger and Alex Ross on the comic book Justice, which speculates in the introduction to the comic itself that, and I got the quote here, the villain in his mind is the hero. That is where true evil resides. And that's always got me thinking about what the difference is between a hero and a villain. You know, if the hero believes he's a hero and a villain believes that he's a hero, then how do their actions differ from one another? And I think it becomes about how selfish the other person is or how selfish the person is in their own actions. If the person sees themselves like taking these actions because they think that it's for the betterment of everyone else, and that they know that like their thoughts and opinions and feelings are the right ones, it becomes much more about, I'm doing this because it's what's right for me. Whereas, a hero would necessarily see their actions as being like, I want to help someone, I want to change something for someone else's, for their benefit, because it's like, you're not trying to save yourself, you're trying to save someone else. So to go along with that, I think about what are the basic steps that we generally take when we create our player characters in a Pathfinder game or a Starfinder game. We ask, what do they like? What do they dislike? Are they good at something? Are they bad at something? What goals do they have? How do people relate to them? And when you're making a villain, those questions all still apply. It just, the answers to them might change very subtly. Mm-hmm. And looking more at the stereotypes side of things, I tend to think that you can't just the problem with stereotypes is that they are shortcuts. There is a certain movie company that likes to queer code all of their villains, whether it's through just a simple sibilant lisp, over the top makeup, or exaggerated buffoonery. The choices play into the idea that because we as society should hypothetically be afraid of queer people, that means that they are inherently villainous, without actually doing a lot of the work to set up a character as interesting. You basically are relying on those stereotypes to convey the message of villainy without actually conveying the message of villainy. So let's say we wanted to create a pirate who has a longtime nemesis and is stuck somewhere and wants to get home. And you know what? Let's even make him gay. Let's say that, just as in the original work, he is in fact in love with his first mate, and that they are best friends, and that the entire pirate crew is found family. He would value his crew, value their well-being. He would want to do what's right for them for their sake. He'd want to do what's right for him for his sake. But he probably doesn't do a lot of listening to what they have to say. He might make decisions that could put them in peril because he thinks it's what's best. And it becomes less about relying on the fact that he's kind of a buffoon making these foolish decisions. And when you start to think about, okay, is he selfish? Is he someone who really enjoys fashion, fine dining, wine? What are his motivations in this moment? Are his motivations anger at the person who's always getting in the way of him accomplishing his goal? And it's by asking these questions, by fleshing out and showing that, he's willing to do anything. A character can be both, he's willing to do anything to accomplish his goals, even at the point of sacrificing friends and allies. It does become a better question of how selfish is he being? Who is he really doing this for? And who is he helping by his actions? And is he okay with hurting, let's say, children, who might be trying to stop him, who for various reasons may be the cause of some of his own problems with his crew, like that he's stuck where he is. And with that, it's by filling in these other blanks, we stop relying on the fact that like on this outdated idea that gay people are foppish or foolish and silly, and we start to see that he can actually have like a loving relationship or of some kind with his first mate, while also still being someone we do not want to root for, or even maybe someone who we can see ourselves becoming under the right circumstances. I think that's it for what I've got.
Yeah, I really like how you framed it, Heidi, because you really broke down the idea that these are shortcuts, because what you described was the process of, characterization, where you ask questions about your characters, and in order to create a fully fleshed out and more three-dimensional person, which creates more engaging moments, so what it comes down to is you just have to put in a little bit more effort, and you're going to end up with much better results. And I thought that the way that you laid it out step by step was a really good way of parsing that out for people who might be struggling with that order. Excellent. So next up, we have a little bit of a talk from Dustin.
And before I do that, if any of you have we do have time at the end of this session for questions. So if both of you in the Discord or on Twitch, if any of you have questions, be sure to ask for them in the channel, or in Discord, ask them in the Fantastic Worlds channel, and we will do our best to answer them at the end if we have time. One of the things I love about this group is we are all, for the most part, villain sympathizers in the largest of fashions. I think Abby and I bonded a lot over the fact that we are both villain sympathizers.
Love me a good villain.
And I actually struggled a little bit with trying to think about this, because it's easy to think about when you're just chatting with somebody, but when you're put on the spot of, I have to prepare something for a panel, what can you do? And then it hit me, and I can't believe it didn't come to me sooner, because it was probably the first moment where I had this idea that villains are more than just the evil ones or the bad guys or the mustache twirling, cape wearing bad guys that I just thought about as a kid. And that is one of my favorite villains is Victor Freeze, aka Mr. Freeze. But his road as a villain is very interesting. When Bob Kane, Daniel Wood, Sheldon Moldoff first created him, named Mr. Zero at first, but later named Mr. Freeze, he was a B villain in the best of sense. He was a joke character, and that was even expanded on more as a joke in the 1960s Batman TV series that came out. And he wasn't even treated very well in the comics. In fact, at some point, he was like a one-note killing point for Joker. The Joker shot him dead, and he disappeared for the comics for a while. And it wasn't until the 1990s when something fantastic happened, a little show called Batman the Animated Series. It is hands down one of my favorite shows. And just a minute, let me adjust my volume because I've heard it's a little low. Oh, I'm all the way up. Let me turn it up over here. Okay, hopefully that'll be a little better. Hands down, it is one of my... Oh, sorry, give me just a second. I lost my window. Give me a second here. Sorry, y'all. Okay, the 1997, the Batman the Animated Series. If you wanted a masterclass in character development to learn, like teach kids, Batman the Animated Series is where it's at. Plain and simple. It does such a great job at not only looking at the heroes of the show from different aspects, but it also does it for the villains. And one of the first episodes that came out was an episode called Heart of Ice, which basically reframes Mr. Freeze. In it, Victor Freeze basically had an obsession with freezing things even as a kid, which led him to a field in cryogenics. But his wife Nora fell ill, and in the process of basically kind of stealing company time in order to freeze her because she had cancer, basically the big boss came in and stopped it mid-process and caused an explosion of chemicals that caused him to become Mr. Freeze, and losing his wife in the process. But so what ends up happening with him is with his wife gone and him basically heart literally turning to ice, he basically, his grip on humanity is shattered, and so he basically begins to terrorize the citizens of Gotham City, kind of getting revenge for what happened, and through crimes that basically it's just kind of just ruining people's life through cold, ruthless killing and cold ruthlessness, and becomes one of Batman's most fearsome foes in the process. IGN did a top 100 villains article a few years ago, and I believe he was number 67. But they said the pathos is his pathos is a key ingredient to a great villain, and Freeze has tons of it. The man has dedicated his life's work to curing his cryogenically frozen wife's cancer, and just happened to fall victim to one of the unfortunate accidents that seem to always befall comic book characters who can relate to that. And his loss is deep, and in many ways it is kind of a mirror to Bruce Wayne's parents dying, is just this tragic loss, and where one went in the direction of trying to do good, the other went towards doing something bad. And that's why I feel like that is a great example of giving a villain three-dimensionality. That's all I got.
Yeah, I really like your choice in looking at specifically the character Mr. Freeze, because like he said, when he was conceived, he was a joke character of, I can turn things cold, so let's call me Mr. Freeze, right?
Yeah.
But adding that layer of backstory really makes him, like you said, empathetic, and it builds upon that, and it makes him more interesting. So like when you were talking about Dr. Freeze, or Mr. Freeze, excuse me, I'm assuming he's a doctor too. It made me think of the Batman and Robin movie, where Arnold Schwarzenegger played him, but they incorporated that backstory with Arnold Schwarzenegger's version of Mr. Freeze. So even though it was weird and campy and honestly kind of terrible to the point where I loved it, it grounded it just enough to make him palatable. So I think that was an extra good choice.
I thought about including that part because, that is how you take a great villain and mutate it into something like it. You took like this wonderful story and just mutated it by putting Arnold Schwarzenegger in the position of it. When Dr. Freeze or Mr. Freeze or however you want to say it is really before he became Mr. Freeze was this meek individual. So the fact they put him into this bulked up was kind of funny at the same time. But yeah, I was sad that it kind of lost that feeling because of it. But I'm glad they still kept the story instead of him just being completely comic book character, like a comic character.
Yeah. I mean, they put glasses on Arnold Schwarzenegger. They tried.
This guy is super smart. He's wearing glasses.
This is the same movie that they put nipples on Batman. So
So really, the best Batman, Batman ever. Yep,
that was a great choice in my opinion. But following that, we now have Jess here. Jess, what would you like to talk about?
It's kind of. It's a little similar to what Heidi was talking about earlier. For me, one of the things that really poorly done villains often rely on is disability. And a lot of this is really rooted in like eugenicist roots. Same thing. I mean, it's similar to the trope of using like race as the main focus of someone's like villainy. It's about othering. It's also about the idea that the reason I bring up eugenics, the idea that people who are disabled or deformed or what have you are more prone to also having mental issues, or more prone to antisocial behaviors too. There was a really horrible work about this by an Italian guy, and I can't remember the name at all right now, but basically talking about how, well, these kinds of people are degenerates and more likely to steal and rob and kill and blah blah blah. And a lot of times it was the people they would be talking about are people with mental physical disabilities. And of course, part of the reason I bring this up is because it hits close to home. I have some disabilities, mental and physical. And so, you know, obviously it has some level of like personal meaning that we shouldn't rely on this one dimensionality, this like monstrousness, supposedly. Not only because like it's othering in many ways, it makes people who have disabilities like myself out to be inhuman. It's like it's dehumanizing. It makes us out to be so different and separated from humanity that it like I think there is a line that they often draw where they're like, well, this is the thing that happens too. Sorry, I'm getting kind of off course, but this is the thing that happens too. Someone will have a disability, and then the narrative of the story will be like, they were so mistreated because of their disability their whole life, and that's what made them evil. And that's so like to boil someone's entire person down to just that one part of their life. Like, obviously, when you look at and meet me and talk to me, you don't instantly go, that's a disabled person and all that they're about is their disability. Like that's all there is to them. But that's so often what these like disabled villain tropes rely on, is their disability has shaped their entire life. And of course it does shape who we are. It shapes me. It definitely does. It has shaped my life and my personality and who I am in so many ways. But then there are like a million other facets, and it's never like they have this disability, but also they had this really beautiful, strong relationship with their father, or like Haiti was talking about, like maybe they know how to have a loving, deep relationship, but you never see that. All you see is like, this is a monstrous othered person. And it creates more stigma in society towards disabled people when they rely on this trope so much. Especially like I know one that comes up a lot is folks in wheelchairs who will then have like this, and this isn't a villain actually, but one example that's coming to mind is like Professor X. Like a lot of what, and he's not one dimensional, but there is this idea that he is so mentally strong because he is not physically strong. You know what I mean? Like there's this kind of counterplay that happens. And that happens a lot with other types of disability as well. It'll be someone who is like physically disabled, and they will then, as compensation, have this like intense mental capacity. It'll be a conniving evil genius. Oh, I'm going to get back at the world, and that's what my entire life is about, because I couldn't possibly do anything else with myself as a disabled person. No, we can do anything we want to be. On that note, and a villain can be disabled. I'm not saying you can't have a disabled villain, but to rely on the trope and make it the source of their villainy and make it the one standout thing about them is so often something that is damaging to your narrative. It is damaging to real life people. It's damaging to society. I had something I wanted to say that I totally just forgot, but that's sort of the crux of sorry, I got a little rambly. I get so passionate about this. But
we like that though.
Yeah, this is good.
This is excellent.
Actually, Jess, it reminded me of, I just read a thing about ADHD and the person who discovered it way back in the 1800s. Basically, his definition of it was a sense of moral decay. And I was just like, that's such a villainous way to talk about.
It's so telling that ADHD is also named after the parts of it that are hard for other people to deal with, not the parts of ADHD that actually affect us, like the people who have ADHD.
Yep.
That's not how the disorder is defined most. It's defined by the thing that bothers other people. How disgusting.
Yeah, it's in the name, deficit. Like,
Yep. And
you
attention.
Exactly. You already preconceive someone's notions to that,
Let's
in like a really terrible way. And I don't know if you were done, Jess, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's pretty much it. If I think of what I forgot to say, I will.
Oh
chime
yeah,
in
for
later.
sure. And I think one of the interesting things that you brought up when it comes to, you specifically mentioned wheelchairs, is, you know, this burgeoning tension in the TTRPG community where there's been a lot of like battle wheelchairs or having heroic characters using wheelchairs, and there's been a lot of pushback from people. And I feel like that's where it where all this happens, right? Is if we treat the villains like this, that feeling is going to show up when we try to create heroes that also share these, in your case, talking about a disability, right? And so it's just something that people don't think about, is if we treat the villains this way, it's going to come back to our heroes as well to a certain effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And now it's Angel. It's Europe. What you going to talk about?
It's so it's so interesting hearing everybody's topics, and the one just like Dustin, I struggled um, as far as thinking of some, something that came to mind really early, but I dismissed it. Was um, King Candy from Wreck It Ralph,
Mhm.
the first movie, and I had watched this multiple times, have it in the background, and I got to thinking: is here you have, all right, uh, King Candy, spoiler, sorry, is Turbo. He was a racer in this old timey video game, 8-bit video game, and as time was progressing, wasn't the star, and tried going into another game, caused it to crash. But for me, I know, spoiler, sorry, but for me, this character that one already started with a background of, I'm a racer, I have a passion for racing, winning, and also stardom. I want to be number one. So okay, movie progresses, you find out that they have infiltrated this high tech, well, maybe high tech for based off their technology, high tech video game, as far as hacked into it, remove the primary character out of it and put themselves on the throne. And what filled in that character for me is they didn't go out to destroy the hero, put him in a dungeon. They created this red herring that you're a glitch, and the entire kingdom ostracized them because if they won the race, it would reset the code and his the reign would be over. But instead of having, well, you can't race, period, it's they basically orchestrated everybody else to do the work for them. He was able to be this goofy king, have some candy. And um, I compare them to, so mad props for, King Candy, the racing usurper. But why did he do this? Racing, that's the thing. He's one of the racers. It wasn't just, well, I want my own game here, my castle. No, he had the main car. He was one of the racers. Um, and then you go to the, like, well, I guess other villains, but maybe minions of the show or the movie, is the actual racing citizens that are native to that video game. Who are they? They're the mean girls, quote unquote mean girls. They don't have any. They're one dimensional. They're, well, you can't race with us. Oh my lord! Oh, that's trashy. And they fall on that kind of easy. Well, we don't have to give them that much dimension. Sure, but that's such a quick. That's such a disservice. You have people that are actually racers. They don't. Their attitudes and their behaviors aren't molded on racing. It's, I'm the mean girl, and also a kind of little a jibe at youth. We see it in memes, we see it in the news. Millennials, this, and the next generation. Every generation, just insert the generation that comes next. Is, oh, they're so shallow. They don't. And you kind of actually see these little jibes in, well, of course, multiple movies, mediums, but in there you really see it as far as you get the queen bee, the little minions. The other ones really don't have any sort of roles. Sure, they have different candy flavors or their little theme, but you don't know them. Um, that scene where they destroy the go kart. I would have liked to seen. Oh, you think you're a racer? Cool. Hey, your pedal car. Let's race right now. Put the wafer where your mouth is. Not, oh, you can't race. We're gonna break your car. No, it's okay. Off the track. Street race. me and you, and that way they at least bring in that I'm, the your antagonist, but I'm also a racer, and I want to put you down using my racer skills, not oh, I'm perceived as that a cliche popular that you having no dimension, uh, and that's what they went with. Whereas King Candy even got Ralph to do his job. Pleadings like I'm just thinking of the kingdom. She'll cause our game like using fear. And it was I rewatched it with a kind of the mindset of this panel. I'm like, how insidious. It was very subtle, having Ralph do all the work. Oh, he got him to wreck the little pedal car, but it was just to me a contrast of how to do villains. Giving that dimension to even just Candy King for me is something that I picture when creating characters, or I want to see in the villains is not just this uh, one-dimensional quick easy shortcut, like we've been talking about, but wow, this person has really, because of their passion for racing and wanting to be the star, orchestrated this whole thing and has kept the kingdom until hero or villain Wreck-It Ralph, whatever comes over. But that's what makes me think of when I hear third dimensional. That's what uh, my mind just went straight to. Plus, I'm a Disney fan, but I just zeroed in on that scenario right away. Sorry,
Oh, no,
sorry.
yeah, for
Jess,
sure.
I took after. I rambled too. It's like Jess, I took after you. Sorry, it just was like Candy King, evil.
Oh, that's perfect. When
no,
you
it's
get
good, yeah.
it's good to have passion.
Well, and what
Yeah.
I like about what's funny is about Wreck-It Ralph is I didn't think about that about the racer girls, but because overall that movie is a great analysis of villains and like giving them dimension, because Wreck-It Ralph himself is a villain in the game, and it's kind of about that story about like not every villain is a villain just for villain's sake. So that was kind of that was a very good point.
No, yeah. When I used to teach a specific class, because I'm a teacher in my real life job, I used Wreck-It Ralph actually to teach the hero's journey. And, there's a lot of depth to pretty much every single characters. But whenever we got to those racers and we tried to really pinpoint who they were supposed to be, the students would always be like, I don't know. And I'd be like, yeah, me too, because they're
That's
just
fair.
wallpaper. Right? Everyone else does something to fit the hero's journey, and then they're just kind of obstacles for the sake of obstacles, which is no fun. But last but not least, Miss Abby, what do you have to talk to us today?
So I wanted to talk today to kind of give some examples of villains I think work well, and a villain that I think could have worked well with some fixing based on what we've discussed on the panel. I'm going with MCU villains because I think that's a genre of film that most of us have seen, so it won't require a lot of contextualization. I was tempted to go with Star Trek villains, but I don't think as many of us have watched that in the deep cut way that I would have wanted to go about it. So we're going to do MCU villains for my bit. I did want to make a small caveat before I begin my section. I have seen every MCU film at this point, but I have not read the comics. Don't come for me about why I'm wrong because of their comic book characterization. I am just
Abby, why are
talking
you
about
looking
the
at me?
movies. Yes, Logan, I am looking at you in particular.
I feel so stared at.
Yes, I mean, but this is also just a general blast that these movies are made with a general audience in mind. So a villain shouldn't only work because you know their comic book backstory. Thus concludes my caveat before we get into it. So when I was prepping my section of the panel, I got to play a little game with myself called Do You Even Remember This Guy? Which I did not for a good chunk of I looked up a list of MCU villains and I was like, oh, I forgot all about that person. And the MCU has a pretty dramatic range of baddies, from the completely forgettable Malekith in Thor: The Dark World to the mid-grade. They don't really seem to have any real motivations, but I like the cut of their jib folks like Ego and Hela, up to who I consider the top tier baddies, Killmonger and Loki.
Yes.
So here's why I think these two kind of stand up as a really good example of villains done well, insofar as they can be, right, in a sort of general mass film sort of thing. Also with the caveat that Killmonger does come from a marginalized identity, but Loki obviously does not. But what I do like about these characters is they are relatively well fleshed out and don't rely on marginalization as a source of their power or their pain. They both have motivations that make sense, a clear set of goals, desires, drives, a fleshed out backstory. They appeal to our sympathies because even though both of them do these really grandiose, unspeakable things, their pain still is relatable, even if their methods aren't to the rest of us. They do dip into a certain sort of like villainous archetype, but not too much into stereotype. And the writers clearly actually did a lot of thinking about their interior lives, because as large as their plans are, their actions are sort of born from a very intimate, small, and familiar, like messy family trauma that I think a lot of us find a lot more overall relatable, and it fits into the larger story. And I think they also serve well as the point of they need to serve as a direct foil to their hero as well. And it adds another layer of what makes the hero story work emotionally, is that they each have a really is that each have a connection to their villain that plays into their larger story in a way that makes the hero's arc more satisfying, which is part of the point of a villain. There's no point in having a villain that has no connection to the hero in any real way. The stakes just aren't there. And then finally, what I think really makes them both stand out is they have a full, complete emotional arc. It's important for the villain to have one of those in any piece of media. And so it's something to, going back to the points that everyone else has made before me, is you really have to think about the interiority of your villain that you're writing. Who are they? What do they want? Why do they want that? And what are they prepared to do to get it in a way that relates to something a little more human? I just got the 30-second mark. I talked about that for a long time instead of actually moving on. So really
you can
quick,
have another minute. You can have another
the villain that I would fix, because I just watched this movie, is Jan Rog from Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is not a good film in the sense, for a lot of reasons, but my least favorite part about it is just the rampant, blatant queer baiting.
Ugh.
But yeah, I know. But one of its major failings is it fails to produce a villain that means anything. And I think that that's one of the things that really hamstrings that film. Because it's a waste of Jude Law. You had Jude Law. Why did you give him this boring, dry, bland part where he does nothing except limply chase Brie Larson around the galaxy for no apparent reason? He's just a really boring, basic, gaslighting dude. And we don't know about his place in this story, what his emotional stake in this is, what his bond with Carol even actually is. He doesn't even seem to think of himself as the main character of his own life, much less the hero of this story. He has no arc of his own. And so the reveal that he was the real villain the whole time falls completely flat. So a way to I think make that story better would have been to make actual stakes matter for him, to explain how he fit into it in a way that actually deepened the emotional stakes for the heroes as well, of actually showing the bond between Carol, Jan Rog, and then also the entire supporting cast of other people on their little squadron, because they were complete caricatures. They had nothing, which means that at the end, when she fights them, it doesn't matter to you because they had no development, which kind of goes off of Angel's point of even if you can't just have one great villain and a bunch of like boring henchmen. The henchmen also need to have their own interiority to build off the plot and actually matter.
Very
I have a
well
lot
said.
more that I could rant about just like on this topic and about just sort of like the MCU in general. But I will leave it there.
I think just as an end cap to this conversation that we all had is, Abby, I think your point in particular, ramping off of what everyone else said, it shows that what is needed a lot of the time is time. You need to have the time to explore these characters in order to create, and I really like that word, interiority, in order to make them fully realized peoples. And I think that's a huge failing of such as Wreck-It Ralph or the MCU movies, is that even though they're extremely long, they don't have enough time to do everything perfectly. So I think that's why you get a lot better villains coming out of TV shows where they actually allow you to explore the villains, or in a comic book where you have years and years to work with a villain, or even a video game where you again, there's multiple hours to spend with them and really ramp this up. But that pretty much concludes the time that we had as a panel to talk about the Medusa effect. And Jess, you have been collecting questions.
Yeah.
Yes. So let me peek on over and we will start answering them. Okay. So the first one is from JP12X Real. They say, please explain villain sympathizer.
So for me, a villain sympathizer is someone who looks at the villain and says, "Yep, I can understand why you did that." And I think that has a lot to do with like creating well-rounded villains. It also has a lot to do with how, like, as a person, we feel disenfranchised in our own society, and like there are certain villains I will never sympathize with, in the same way that there are people who will sympathize with villains, with those same villains, and not the ones that I sympathize with. It's about looking at like the intersection between the viewer and the character motivations, and understanding how you could relate, or how you could be that person under the right circumstances.
Yeah, I think that a lot of queer people in particular often tend to sympathize with well-written villains. I don't think there's a lot of people I know that are seriously in the Empire did nothing wrong camp. But that there is a certain amount of identification with feeling othered and with being the bad guy. That and feeling like you've been cast that way. Which is a kind of a common theme with villains of like, okay, fine, I'm sort of outside of society. Fuck all of you. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop the F-bomb, Dustin.
Ooh, you did a swear.
I did a swear. So I think that's what most people that I know mean by villain sympathizer is, I get where this person is coming from. I don't think their methods are good.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I get it. Like, but it's that sort of thing. A well-written villain can be the most interesting character in a piece of media, when done correctly, I think.
Word 'em up.
I was, just thinking about it is, I always have a joke that people either in real life either really like me or they really hate me. There's usually no in between, and that a lot of times the ones that really hate me or do not like me, it's usually based on stereotypes. Like they see me as this big guy and all the stereotypes around that, but then I defy a lot of those stereotypes because I'm actually a very hard worker. In fact, anybody who's been involved with us getting ready for this weekend knows exactly how crazy, insane I've been busy. But it ends up being vilified because somebody goes, well, you shouldn't act that way, or you shouldn't be like that, and you shouldn't be able to do that. And then also there's the side of the moment you screw up once, all of a sudden all this trust and good will you build up, that little bit of trust that's been built up, where somebody would be easily forgiven for a mistake with people like, who are disabled or look different or othered. Basically, the moment they do a little screw up, all that goodwill just disappears, no matter how hard you try. And so there's a lot of times when you see, yep, I see where this person came from. I tend to identify a lot with villains who are just tired of trying to go through the bureaucracy of life and just want to shortcut it. I understand that because when you sit there and deal with walls all the time, nonstop, you just want to take a shortcut sometimes because it's just there are more walls put in front of certain people than others, and that can be the genesis of some villains, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely goes down to pretty privilege. So for the sake of time, I'm going to jump to this next question because it's our other user one. So this one comes from Weejit74. How well do you feel Paizo's systems allow for diversity? Do you feel there are ways they could improve? Now, we only have 2 minutes left in this panel. So
that's a doozy of a question.
I was about to say, it's a huge one. So maybe just, I don't know, free ball it, free form.
I'll start this because I'm very familiar with where Paizo is going. I think all TTRPG spaces for the most part have work to be done, including ourselves. I think us as a group, like Jess and I talk about some mistakes we made with Manette early on that we regret doing, that we probably would have changed now. But Paizo is trying their best. And a good example of what they're doing for their best is the Mwangi Expanse book that's coming out. They put so much work into that, into making sure that was kind of culturally sensitive, I guess is the best word to put it. I have never seen a TTRPG book in mainstream TTRPG publications do that. And I'm very excited to see that book. That's the first book I've been genuinely excited to see in a very long time.
Yeah, as you say, there is always work to be done. In the word diversity is slung around a lot in a way that is not comprehensive. It can't just be, okay, we're diversifying, so we're adding, because diversity on its own, you're adding, people of a different race, disabled people, yada yada. What you're not doing then by just inserting them is creating a space for them. You're simply going for diversity with no structural support. And so the inclusivity part is important. And I think that's something Paizo is really working towards doing, like hiring writers who are people of color, hiring queer writers, hiring sensitivity readers. You should always, no matter who you are, it doesn't matter, like as a Jewish person, if I'm writing a story about Jews, I'm not going to just say, well, I know everything because I'm Jewish. Like I don't have every perspective of every Jewish person. I don't speak for all of us. And so it's always good to at least get a second pair of eyes on your stuff for sensitivity purposes. And I feel like that's a step that Paizo is taking that I respect, and it's part of the reason why I continue to play Pathfinder versus other systems, because I really appreciate that effort.
Yeah, I think, that's a nice way to wrap this up, is just diversity is good, but intersectionality and inclusivity is better.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us for our first ever panel from the Fantastic Worlds production. Once again, I have been Logan Main Rizzy. You can find me at mainman08. And we'll just go clockwise again. So Angel.
Angel Espinoza over here. I can be reached at Espinoza916.
And this is Dustin, and I can be reached at Dustin Alexander.
I'm Abby, and I can be reached at Bonanza Famine.
I'm Heidi. You can find me at Vamahillion.
Jess, catch me at Hank the Clank.
Okay, I hope you all have an amazing rest of the time at PaizoCon. There's another Fantastic Worlds production stream happening at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, doing a 2E adventure. The Starfinder adventure will pick back up again at 10 a.m. tomorrow, Pacific Standard Time, with again the Pathfinder 2E happening at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. We got giveaways if you come to our Discord channel, t-shirts, stickers. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, Far Beyond the Stars, Fantastic Worlds podcast, Greatest Show on Earth. If you join our Patreon, Fairy Tale Fix, join our Discord. Don't just be talking to us in PaizoCon online. We're fun all year round. I
And-
Yeah, we
swear.
are.
And also,
Yeah.
also, if you're enjoying what we're putting out, subscribe to our Twitch as well.
Yeah.
Jess, Heidi, and I put on regular video game streams, and we actually have some fun things planned in the next year for doing more adventures on Twitch. But we're still
So
working
much
those out. So, all right, thank you all, and have a good couple hours, and we hope to see you at 3.
Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.